Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt, so much. Thank you, Matt, for your talk. That was really, really amazing. Love Netlify. And our next speaker, I am super, super excited to introduce. Nathan Harvey leads the DORA team at Google Cloud. DORA, or DevOps Research and Assessment, enables teams and organizations to thrive by making industry-shaping research accessible and actionable. Nathan has learned and shared lessons from some incredible organizations, teams, and open source communities. He is the co-author of multiple DORA reports on software delivery performance and was a contributor and editor for 97 Things Every Cloud Engineer Should Know, published by O'Reilly in 2020. Nathan, I'm so honored to introduce you and can't wait for your talk.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. And I just want to make a small correction. DORA stands for DORA. It doesn't stand for anything else. That's just how we roll. All right, so I am Nathan Harvey. I'm really excited to join you today and have really enjoyed all of the presenters before me. So let's dive right in. Well, first and foremost, DORA is a research program that's been running for over a decade now. In fact, we just published our 10th annual report. There's the URL where you can grab it from and a QR code. I highly recommend that you read it. We have a deep dive into artificial intelligence this year. In fact, I'm just going to pause for a minute while you download and read that report. Okay, sorry, we don't have any kind of time for that. It's a 120-page report. Use it over your holiday reading, add it to your holiday reading list for sure. 2024 definitely, though, is the era of AI. And we are really privileged to be able to research what's happening right now in the industry with teams, high-performing organizations and technology-driven teams around the world. And I want to share some of the findings that we had from this year's report. So before I get to the AI portion, I want to talk about software delivery performance and how DORA thinks about it. You may have heard of DORA metrics or the 4 keys. These are the measures of software delivery performance that DORA looks at. I think it's really important to ground ourselves in this because as we're using AI, one of the reasons that we're using AI, certainly while we're coding, is so that we can ship software. So how does DORA think about software delivery performance? Well, that's the concept. We have a couple of different factors. First, software delivery throughput. So how quickly can you move change through your system? And then software delivery stability. When you move change through the system, how well does it land? On the throughput side, this year, we use 3 measures. Your change lead time, how long does it take to go from committed into production? Your deployment frequency, how frequently are you updating production? And if something were to go wrong, how quickly can you recover by probably shipping more software into production, maybe an emergency change or something like that. We want to be able to move fast, but we also want to be stable. So on the stability side, we look at 2 other things. The first one I call the O-expletive rate. It's what happens when you push a change to production and you or someone around you shouts out an expletive. The researchers call that the change fail rate. But in addition to that, we also want to look at the rework rate. How often do you have to redeploy something and you hadn't planned for that? We want to minimize your software, or we want to improve your software delivery stability, minimize that rework rate and the change fail rate. So these are the ways that we think about how software gets into production and how we might measure that. Of course, what we see in our research is that the best of the best are doing worlds better than those that, have the most opportunity to improve. You see crazy statistics here, like 127 times faster lead time, 2,293 times faster failed deployment recovery times. These numbers are startling. They're mind-boggling and something that you might strive for. But why might you strive for these sorts of numbers? Why does software delivery performance matter? Well, what we've seen in our research over the decade is that software delivery performance is a leading indicator of some really important outcomes. Outcomes like organizational performance and well-being for the people on the team. That's us, you and me. But software delivery performance is a lagging indicator for how is your engineering excellence going? How is your organization working to deliver software? Things like a climate for learning, fast feedback, and fast flow. All right. That's kind of where we are grounded. Let's talk about AI. This year, we did a deep dive into AI, and we looked at a couple of things: adoption and attitudes and the impact of AI. And in a surprise to no one, many organizations around the world are prioritizing AI, trying to build it into all of their plans and objectives that they have over the next year or beyond. Interestingly, when we dug into why are people prioritizing, why are organizations prioritizing AI? A lot of the answer was FOMO. Everyone else around me is doing it, so if I don't do it, I'm going to get left behind. Hopefully over the next year, we'll have a little bit better grounding on why. Why are we using AI? There's a huge task reliance on AI as well. We asked individuals how much they rely on AI for what specific tasks. And you won't be surprised to hear that the top two were writing code and summarizing information. We asked about perceptions of productivity. So as you're using more AI, is it increasing your job productivity? Most respondents said yes. There were very few that had a negative view or impact on their productivity. Trust is a different thing, though. One of the things that we asked was, how much do you trust the quality of AI-generated code? And about 40% said that they only trust it a little bit, or maybe even not at all. Frankly, I think this is okay. We should definitely not trust AI-generated code 100%. We also shouldn't trust it 0%. There's some Goldilocks of trust, somewhere right in the middle where we want to be. Let's find that together as an organization. All right, that's some of the descriptives of what we found, but let's look at the more important things. What is the impact of adopting and relying on AI more? So here we go. First and foremost, let's look at how is it impacting the individuals that are using more AI. First, let me describe how to read this chart. On the left-hand side of the chart, you see some outcomes like flow and job satisfaction and productivity. These are things that we want to shoot for. Across the, I guess about halfway across the chart, there's this dashed line that goes up and down, vertical dash line. This would be if it had zero impact on that particular outcome. And then you see the dots with the little bars. The dot is the expected impact, and then the bars is our uncertainty rate. So the wider the bar, the less certain we are about a particular answer. And what are we asking? Well, if you were to increase your reliance or your adoption of AI by about 25%, what would that look like? And we see some really interesting data here. First, flow increases, job satisfaction, productivity, all of these things are increasing. That's really, really great. Burnout, which is, I skipped one to jump to burnout. Burnout is the second from the bottom there. It looks like it's to the left of 0. So maybe we're decreasing burnout, which of course is a good thing. We want to do that. But there's a pretty wide uncertainty bar. So maybe it's a negligible impact. But here's the other thing that's really interesting. The other two items here. Time doing toilsome work, maybe no change there. Time doing valuable work has gone down. That's interesting and scary, maybe? I don't know. So it's not that you're doing less valuable work, maybe that you're spending more or less time achieving that value. Maybe AI is helping you with that. This really opened up a bunch of questions for us. So many questions, in fact, that we did further research that we just published this morning. So I've just shared a link in the chat if you want to go and learn a little bit more about what do we mean when we say valuable work, or more importantly, what did our participants of our survey say, or what were they thinking about when we talked about valuable work? So these are the impacts on the team, on the individual. It looks pretty good. Let's step back and look a little bit wider across teams and sort of applications. Read the chart the same way, and I'll give you the quick rundown on it. Documentation quality, code review speed, and approval speed all improve. They're all going up as you adopt more AI. Cross-functional coordination and collaboration across teams, it's about the same. Technical debt looks like it's skewing a little bit lower, and code complexity is also going down. Again, this is a really nice and positive story. There is an interesting question here, though. Let's take documentation quality as a good example. First, how do you even measure documentation quality? Well, it's not quantity. We all know that. The way that we measure it is through looking at a bunch of different factors of documentation. For example, do you rely on your documentation when you are working with an application or a service? If there's an incident, do you reach for the documentation to figure out, how do I get out of this incident? How do I recover from this? Is your documentation up to date? This is another quality or another aspect of good quality documentation. Now, given all of this, when we increase our use of and reliance on AI, we see documentation quality improving. But here's the interesting question. Has the underlying documentation actually improved, or is our interactions with AI giving us greater utility out of the underlying documentation? We all know that AI is really great at summarizing documents. It's really great at using or finding disparate sources of documentation and bringing those together and making them more accessible. So we don't really know through our data if the documentation quality is actually improving or if AI is helping us get more value out of the existing documents. And we suspect that the answer is yes. Yes, probably both of these things are happening. Certainly, I know from my own personal experience that using AI to generate documentation is a great way to start writing documentation that I may have otherwise never written. So really good and interesting insights here. So if we think about this, we saw some really great impacts on the individual level. If we step back and look at the team and sort of application level, we see good impacts as well. And we know through the history of our research that all of these things, these capabilities or conditions, lead to better software delivery performance. So that's what we should expect with artificial intelligence. But unfortunately, that's not quite what we found. So let's see, what did we find? Well, what we found was that if and as AI adoption increases, we see drop-offs in both throughput and stability of software delivery changes. Oh, this is not quite the rosy picture that I was hoping for. It's not the rosy picture that maybe we all want. Yes, AI is having a great, tremendous impact on the way that we do work, the way that our teams do work, but it looks like it's not, or maybe just not yet, helping us get change into production in front of users faster and safer. Why? Why is this? Why is AI having this negative impact? Our data doesn't tell us, but we have a bunch of hypotheses. I'll share a few of them with you now, and I'd love to hear your own hypotheses in the chat. So one hypothesis that we have is thinking back to what we've learned over the years for how do you improve software delivery performance. And we know that one of the best ways to improve software delivery performance is to ship smaller features or ship smaller changes. Smaller changes are easier to reason about. If something goes wrong, they're easier to roll back or easier to patch, etc. With AI, I, as a developer, can write a whole lot more code in the same amount of time that it took me previously to write a little bit of code. So maybe we're trying to push larger changes through our systems. If that's the case, then these are the results that we should expect. But there may be other things at play here, including potentially the AI. It's trained on a large corpus of data and has a bunch of insights into how to write code. But it might not have a ton of insights into how to rewrite code within our organization or on our team. Without that context, potentially, AI is suggesting and generating code that just doesn't quite follow the norms of our organization and of our team, in which case it might end up causing some issues, needing to be rolled back, etc. So overall, I think that what we're seeing is that there are lots of great impacts that AI is having, and there are still lots and lots of opportunities for us to think about this. And I just want to come back to this model here, where we show how software delivery performance is predictive of those great outcomes. But let's look again at those capabilities and conditions, because frankly, those capabilities have always been the area that DORA spends a lot of time researching. And if you read our reports and look at the data that we share, you'll find that that's where all of the interesting things are. The software delivery performance metrics are important for sure, and they help us understand very quickly how we're doing. But there are so many capabilities that drive those, and AI can have a real potential across all of them. Those capabilities include things like documentation quality, which we've talked about, but also things like test automation, your continuous integration practices, even the culture of your organization. All of this really matters. And this is the area of research that DORA has been leaning into. We want to understand how teams, technology-driven teams, become and sustain high performance. This is a movement about continuous improvement. And in this movement, we really encourage you to take the findings from our research and replicate them in your own context. DORA researches teams around the world. You work on a specific team, on a smaller set of applications. Take our findings, use those as a hypothesis for the next experiment that you're going to run so that you and your team can get better at getting better. And I would be remiss without telling you that you can't do this alone. None of us can do this alone. I want to thank Sourcegraph for bringing us all together today to talk about AI. And I want to invite each and every one of you to join me and thousands of other practitioners and leaders and researchers in the DORA community, where we can continue this conversation and continue figuring out how to use AI to best help our teams. And with that, one more reminder of here's the URL where you can download that report. And let's move to our Q&A session. So Steve, welcome.
Nathan, wow, that was really, really interesting. Everybody's just like, Okay, so straight up, I'm going to get into these questions. We got a lot.
Great.
So do you measure overall dev sentiment, NPS?
We have in the past. In 2024, we did. I don't believe we asked an NPS question.
Should you?
Should you measure overall? Yeah, I think you should. I think it's really important. We do measure other sort of facets of well-being. We ask things about job satisfaction, burnout, etc.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So, why do you think developers are seeing no reduction in toil? You said that was obvious when you mentioned it.
Yeah. Why aren't we seeing, look, man, I want the AI to do my laundry so I can do the art. And what our data shows us is it's probably doing some of the art and giving me more time for laundry. That's definitely not the contract that I entered into when I started using this. I think frankly that perhaps we just aren't trying to apply AI to reduce some of that toil. Some toil is, it's a manual task that we have to do, maybe has multiple steps, maybe could be automated. Maybe we just aren't prioritizing that right now.
All right. Well, here's a question from me. Given that AI is changing so fast, I mean, your study came out. Your study went out 6 months ago. When did the responses come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the responses, the survey itself closed in I want to say maybe August 1st, somewhere around there. So you're absolutely right. End of July, beginning of August is when the survey closed. Report came out in October. Things continue to change. One of the things that's really important for us is that we get a pulse of the industry, so that as we continue our research into 2025, we can continue to see how things are being impacted and how they're changing.
It just feels like the cadence is going to need to be faster, or we're going to always be out of date. Yeah.
I totally agree. And we have plans to step up our cadence. See, as the example, like we published some research today, we are continually doing research, and we're going to be shipping it much more frequently, trying to improve our own research delivery performance, if you will.
Jay would like to clarify the slides that say if AI adoption increases, are they subjective hypothetical surveys, or are they observed difference in outcomes?
That's a great question. So you can read the report for some of the methodology behind that, but essentially what we're doing is we look at the answers that people give us. So this is what we've observed, and then we run some Bayesian statistics upon that. So what if their reliance on AI was increased? How would that impact the rest of the model? It's a pretty complex domain that we're modeling, and that's how we go about doing that.
All right, we got time for one more question, Nathan.
All right.
What's the big thing next year? The one big thing top of mind for you, Code AI?
The big thing top of mind Code AI for me is looking at all of the ways that AI is going to help us get faster feedback and stay in the flows. And that includes moving beyond just the act of writing code. And I'm super stoked at what it's already unlocking for us, and excited to see what's coming next further down throughout the software delivery lifecycle.
Yep, it's going to be a big year.
It will be a big year, indeed.
All right, well, we're going to strive for a very smooth transition this time. I apologize to Paige, Bailey, and Biang we're not very sophisticated with this new software we're using, and it was a little abrupt. Apologies for that. The next one's going to be lovely. I'll tell you what, let's all drop off now and join into the next room.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Oh, and by the way, Nathan, do you have any links? Do you have any, where can people go for more on this?
DORA.dev.
DORA.dev. All right.
DORA.dev. Link in the chat. That's where you can find everything.
See you, folks.